Alright, this is another one that doesn't have a authors page, called the TBAPB. So TBAP is all written in capital letters, and then the B at the end isn't. So I do not know if we read one of their works before, but the SCP that we're gonna read of them today is called Sons of the Nation. Alrighty then. Just notice your little Monica. Yeah, there she is. Ever since I changed the angle, I was like, oh, might as well have her here. since we're doing reading SCPs, might as well, let her join in on reading. Sons of the Nation. Here we go. Another, like, this one might be who knows how long. So here we go. We only now reached the halfway point, and it's already 2 hours and 12 minutes of a stream. Object class safe. Special containment procedures. Biological samples that are part of SCP-2195 will be either preserved in formaldehyde solution, dried and stored in a vacuum container, or frozen according to the method they were preserved with at the moment of discovery. Biological samples preserved through plastic infusion or stored in a solid synthetic resin block, as well as non-biological samples, do not require any special containment procedures. 3 lower level security vaults inside 7 are designated for SCP-295 storage. Non-deactivated late-term -1 samples are to be handled by trained personnel or as per standard Foundation guidelines for handling bulk primary explosive substances. Research has shown that explosive materials contained within -1 degrade over time. Therefore, they are granted a storage period of 20 years and are able to be incinerated afterwards. Here we have a picture that says sample number 37, a 29-week-old -1 in formaldehyde solution. Don't like how that looks like. Documents acquired as part of SCP-2195 are to be digitalized and uploaded into SCP-2195 documentation database. Original documents are archived. Access to SCP-2195 documentation is restricted to personnel of 2-295 clearance or higher. Level 2, basically. Access of SCP-2195 samples is restricted to personnel of 3-2195 clearance or higher. Experiments that involve the production of -1 require Ethics Committee approval. Description: SCP-2195 is a collective designation for documental and material evidence, specifically collected by unidentified individuals, that is related to a large-scale government project which involves mass reproduction of -1 for military purposes, specifically targeting the drawbacks of said project. SCP-2195 includes biological samples preserved through various methods, demonstration and test articles, prototypes, and a variety of documents. The sum of documentation recovered was enough to fill 19 shipping containers at the moment of discovery. Analysis of said evidence has shown that the project took place in political, historical, and social-cultural circumstances inconsistent with known reality, which suggests extra-dimensional or otherwise anomalous origin. Although no fully formed -1 were discovered within SCP-2195, recovered material provided enough information to give a complete description of their appearance. -1 are living, genetically altered human infants of indeterminate sex. -1 allosomes are identical and contain genetic information from both X and Y chromosomes. -1 body structure is radically different from that of normal infants. -1 presumed to have the shape of an ellipsoid, roughly 60 cm long and 50 cm in circumference, and mass of 9 to 9.5 kilograms. The physiology of tissues covering the front and back ends is identical to that of somewhat callous human skin. The rest of the skin is fascillated, metamorphosized, parchment-like, and fused with the underlying bone. No muscles and or fat tissues are present. Ribs grow away from the whole length of the spine, 55 to 56 pairs of ribs in total. The ribs are flattened and fused along the whole length, which creates a solid bone capsule with the pelvis and the skull fused immovably to its respective ends. The skull is small, streamlined forwards and has radial symmetry. The only orifice facing outside is a large eye socket on the front end of the body, which contains an anatomically normal eye with a transparent protective membrane. No auditory apparatus is present, but the inner ear vestibular system is extremely developed. The pelvic section also has radial symmetry and serves as an attachment point for 4 identical limbs facing upwards and downwards diagonally. These limbs are around 10 centimeters long and contain a single pointed bone, which is connected to the pelvis by a ball and socket joint, resembling the human hip joint or shoulder joint. The freedom of movement is severely restricted by the joint positions within the body, as well as rigid tendons. Nonetheless, they are fitted with powerful muscles intended to turn the limb around its axis. An orifice with a sphincter is located between these limbs, which leads to a small dead end cavity with richly innervated walls. Inner organs are mostly either rudimentary or missing, which makes -1's life expectancy to be 10 to 15 minutes, unless sustained by an external life support system. Apart from the aforementioned sensory organs, central nervous system, and muscles, only the circulatory system is developed, which includes major vessels, the heart, and an organ that resembles a radically altered spleen. Said organ has thick myoglobin-rich walls that can accumulate a certain amount of oxygen and release it into the blood and filters carbon dioxide out of the blood. There is also a small cluster of electrolytes which is connected via the nerves to the cardiac conducting system. Aside from the front and back ends, the majority of -1's body is occupied by tissue that structurally resembles liver tissue, with extreme adipose degeneration, vacuolous amount for 97% of its volume, and even more than that in mass. Instead of fat, the vacuole, how do you spell this? How do you pronounce this?
We base word as well as how to say more interesting but often confusing medical terms, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. How do you say it? Vacuole.
Vacuoles contain a complex or organic substance that has pronounced explosive properties. Its exact parameters cannot be determined due to the irregularity of the remaining biological component amount within tissues, as well as due to the substance's own nature. Supposedly a mix of several compounds with similar properties in varying proportions. Approximately properties can be described as such: density 1.8 till 1.9 gram per centimeter squared, cubed, not squared. Specific energy of explosion 9.2 megajoules per kilogram. Explosive strength measured by Trautzel test 670 centimeters cubed. Presence measured by cast test 8 millimeter. Detonation velocity 8,300 to 8,500 meters per second. Pretty fast. Sensitivity 70% explosive with a 10 kilogram weight dropped from a height of 25 centimeters. Okay, so if you just drop them almost a foot, there's a 70% chance that they will explode, but only if they weigh 10 kilos together. Mouth tissue in an instance of -1, 7.5 to 8 kilograms explosive yield up to 25 kilograms of TNT equivalent. So it's very strong. According to the document, -1 have a gestation time of 40 weeks, which is normal to humans. They were also naturally born, but subject to the following operative treatments immediately after birth: catheterization of 2 major vessels for connection to life support system, installation of metal clamp along the spine which acts as a band for suspension mount, mounting of reinforced plastic fins on the limbs, filling the front end with a transparent nose cone. After that, Dash 1 was subjected to 3-week training in a wind tunnel fitted with elastic suspension system and an image projector to display various battlefield scenes as seen from above. For that purpose, a device for electrical nerve stimulation was inserted into the orifice at the rear end of Dash 1. The higher the achieved targeting precision, the greater the stimulation. Dash 1 specimens were thus trained to develop visual recognition skills for various targets and trained in control the flight using limb-mounted aerofoil planes. During the training, the electric organ, which functions as a detonator, was to be temporarily disabled by means of paralytic agent injection. So these are just like living tubular things that work as explosives. Following the training, Dash 1 was to be tattooed with an emblem of the target it was trained for, but into a state of suspended animation and packed into a shipping container for later use as a homing high explosive bomb. The documentation found as part of the SCP-2195 is mostly typewritten in a language having minor differences with modern French, although the origin of names and toponyms mentioned within seems to be more English. No similarities within modern geography were found. The name of the state is never mentioned. Instead, Notre Patrie, or Fatherland, is listed in the official office positioning and department names, which is often abbreviated to NP, example present the NP. According to information contained within, the state waged a long and slaughterous offensive war on another state's territory, which was not popular among its populace. State propaganda efforts were not sufficient to subdue the growing pacifist movement, which was specifically strong among the soldiers' mothers. The arms industry was also on the verge of decline. Documented project was proposed in order to solve both problems and was meant to implant embryos of Dash 1 into all fertile women under the guise of various mandatory medical procedures. The search of living bombs born afterwards was announced as a natural event. Of course, yeah, absolutely. A manifestation of mass consciousness, the will of the people, and evidence of charitability of the military intervention taking place. Original documents use a specific philosophical term which, according to the context, should mean predetermination or being destined by a higher force, whose will it is immoral and unnatural for a human being to resist. Another important factor was the mother's blood relationship, which required a mother to unconditionally support her child's voluntary efforts, which in turn demanded her to abolish any pacifist beliefs or made her an indirect participant of the bombings, which personal responsibility forced her later on. Note, this shows drastic differences of ethical norms between our society and the one described. It is hard to imagine that measures like these would have had any effect in any state we know. Yet, SCP-2195 documents describe them as extremely effective, yet highly immoral. Although only in the sense that both the higher will and the blood relationship were falsified, therefore the highest values were fraudulently exploited. However, various events that took place during the project's development, should they have become public, would have brought sharp discredit on it, due to both the negative nature and the fact that the nature and sheer amount of these events contradict the idea of higher force, mercy, and justice, therefore making the higher will explanation unviable. First and foremost, SCP-2195 contains evidence of numerous complicated disorders during pregnancy and birth. Various fetal pathologies and deformities, miscarriages in cases of stillbirth, preserved samples included. Numerous cases of ectopic pregnancy, several post-mortem specimens, and a variety of medical records are available. The vast majority of these cases resulted in the mother's death or loss of fertility, which was grounds for euthanasia. Birth trauma in case of mother's deaths at birth due to the fetus size and rigid structure. Medical records available. Acute, often life-threatening toxicosis caused by metabolic byproducts during explosive substance formation inside fetus. Several in-depth research papers, histological samples and body fluid samples available. Anemia, dangerous exhaustion of the mother's body due to the fetus accelerated growth. An essay of observation concerning this issue is available. Multifetal gestation, which almost inevitably caused pathologies. Case of -1 conjoined twins, a range of medical records available. The majority of such pregnancies were aborted to the critical situation preserved fetus samples available. Hyperplasia, fermented chorionic hyperactivity or detrimental chorion deformation leading to formation of multiple large syneciated folds. Hyperactivity, abnormal growth, or improper position of the resulting placenta causes destruction of uterine walls, mouth of the womb, or fallopian tubes. Preserved samples, extensive studies, and medical records available. Numerous descriptions of deaths due to the internal bleeding and cases of euthanasia due to the loss of fertility after operative treatment are also available. Spontaneous fetus detonations on later stages of pregnancy. Investigation reports, autopsy protocols, and an archive of media reports are available. Collateral damage and fatalities are described, with the cause presented by propaganda as immoral conduct that is disgracing motherhood. No details of said conduct were provided, although the manner this description is used in suggests that this is common euphemism for some specific deeds. Okay, another class of materials regarding the project's social consequences. It is composed mostly of the following media archives. Case of pregnant women committing suicide. The reason was most often declared as a strong pacifistic beliefs. A shot at the belly was specifically popular, which often caused -1 to detonate. Oh no. A series of suicides were committed in public for demonstration purposes. Some cases were essentially acts of terrorism in popular places, which led to fatalities. On such acts was committed in a maternity welfare center, which caused a chain reaction and large-scale destruction. Several attempts of fertile women to dodge medical supervision, have an independent birth, and nurture -1 on their own, always futile to the latter's inviolability. Jesus. An incident with a high-ranking government official was also part of the project, attempting to make compromising information related to the project public during a speech. The speech was interrupted and the official in question arrested, declared incurably mentally ill, and subsequently euthanized. Yeah, no, there's no pregnant women with children that are basically bombs. No, why would you? No, it should be noted that no case of an illegal abortion were described. A third class of documents is composed of scientific and design documents related to the project's development and implementation. These materials' level of classification is related to the three basic facts: the need to conceal -1 true origin in order to support the propaganda, contradiction with conventional ethics and the current law that makes cloning, genetic engineering, and similar activities illegal, as well as to the wide use of -1 samples for tests and experiments. A large part of these documents is encrypted. The contents are currently unknown. The materials available to study include prototypes and early samples of -1, presentation materials prepared for acceptance inspection hearings, instructional materials and demonstration samples, visual aids, and mock-ups. Both artificial products and real -1 samples preserved through plastic infusion or stored in synthetic resin blocks. Modified -1 prototypes are related documents for a project aiming to make homing artillery shells by converting -1. The attempt failed. No instance of -1 that could withstand the acceleration at the moment of the shot could be created. Oh yeah, because like any force to it and it explodes. Prototypes and documentation for another attempt to modify -1. It was supposed to be fitted with a rocket engine and used as homing missiles. That was successful, but the modification was declared unpractical for economic reason, as cheap -1 were to be fitted with factory-made components. Government decree to recall and collect or destroy all compromising evidence. The document mentions some event that aggravated the situation around the project and compromised its secrecy. This could have been made the aforementioned public speech. It is assumed that the whole of SB-2195 was composed as fulfillment of said decree. An index of all collected materials, only codes are listed instead of titles for encrypted documents, along with a reference to the document with the codes breakdown, also encrypted. During my time in the Foundation employee, I've seen worse, but I still like to believe that there never was a place where things like these are made on a national scale. And this object is only a miscarriage of some alternate history branch or material manifestation of some perverted fantasy. I hope to never know the true state of things. Dr. Discovery. Addendum 1 Discovery. SB-2195 contained in 19 standard shipping containers were initially discovered on 2009 by Federal Security Service of Russia. Operators during an inspection as part of checking investigative information on weapons smuggling. The Foundation took over and investigated the cargo origins. Its movement could be traced up to 1995. It was found that since 1995 the cargo was constantly moving across Russia by railroad and sea in a loop route. The transfers were paid for from an account established by an unidentified person in 1993 or earlier. No further information could be gathered due to the loss of related documents. Investigations about the cargo escaping any inspections or searches save for weight checks is underway. According to weight checks information, the cargo remained untampered during the whole period. Undamaged seals on container doors confirm that. This still does not explain how the cryonic tanks for storing biological samples were discovered 60% or more full despite requiring a coolant refill once every 6 months. Several hypotheses were proposed to explain this fact and the object's origin as a whole, but at the moment there's a lack of evidence for any of them. And here we have Addendum 2, classified level 4 access only. After several attempts, Dr. Research Group successfully recreated a specimen of -1 using genetic material from SB-2195 and D39207 as a surrogate mother. Despite several complications and the need for cesarean section delivered, the specimen was fully formed and quite healthy, save for some minute anatomical deviations. A series of tests and experiments was conducted, culminating in a successful bombing of a target in the firing range, which completely confirmed the information contained within SB-2195. So basically saying that the information does allow you to create your own bomb babies. However, the test committee pointed out the immense financial and labor costs to reproduce the sample and its life support system, as well as the sample being generally effective but having no outstanding features. -1 was declared having no practical value to the Foundation. I mean, yeah, it would kind of be odd if they used bombs that were created by a woman giving birth. Like, yeah, this has good value for us, right, guys? I'd be like, what is your damage, my man? What? Why would you do this? Man. I'll be right back in the bathroom.